Ourselves and Our Right, a feminist line on abortion, justice, and self-care. Talking about reproductive justice and self-care is important to raise awareness, advocate for rights, and foster inclusive, supportive communities. Table content. Terms and definitions. Abortion is the terminalization of pregnancy by removing the embryo or fetus. This decision may arise from various factors such as personal choice, lack of preparedness, or health considerations. Abortion stigma occurs when people are treated differently simply because they had an abortion, visited or visiting an abortion clinic. Contraceptives are methods of pregnancies that they can include implants, pills, or condoms. This gives individuals control when they want to have children. Dobbs versus Jackson. The Women's Health Organization was a landmark decision that addressed whether the right to an abortion is protected by the Constitution. The Hyde Amendment prohibits the use of federal funds to pay for abortion services, with the exception of rape, incest, and when the woman's life is in danger. Pro-life refers to the belief that all pregnancies should continue. They prioritize protecting unborn babies even in difficult situations such as unplanned pregnancies or complications. Pro-life, pro-choice is the belief that supports people's freedom to choose. This emphasizes the ability to make decisions about their own bodies and, of course, futures. They advocate for safe and legal abortion services, believing that individuals should have the right to make their own reproductive choices. Reproductive rights. Reproductive rights refers to the legal right to make decisions about your own body, such as having access to contraceptives and abortions. Reproductive justice. Reproductive justice builds on those rights, advocating for equal in healthcare, money, and opportunities, particularly in marginalized communities or groups. Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade is a Supreme Court case that legalized abortions in the United States, claiming that it is protected by the Constitution and grants people the right to choose. That is until 2022. The Planned Parenthood Action website contains many more important terms. In addition, you can search up reproductive justice and terms to know, and it should appear. The history of Roe v. Wade and a little more. The history of Roe v. Wade should be known to everyone. The case involved Norbert McCorvey, who used the allies Jane Roe, who wanted a safe and legal abortion, and Henry Wade, the district attorney for Dallas County, Texas. Norbert McCorvey sued Henry Wade because she wanted a safe and legal abortion. She was denied an abortion in 1969 because Texas law only allowed abortions if the woman's life was in danger. Henry Wade, who was in charge of enforcing the Texas law, prohibited most abortions. She believed that the law was unfair and unconstitutional because it prevented her from having a safe and legal abortion, even though her pregnancy was non-life-threatening. By suing the district attorney, McCorvey aimed to challenge the legality of Texas abortion laws and fight for her right to make the decision of her own body. The trial, of course, included legal arguments, witness testimonies, and an examination of evidence regarding the constitutional of Texas abortion laws. The case eventually went through several stages of appeals before reaching the Supreme Court, where the final decision was made. When Roe v. Wade came before the Supreme Court, they heard the arguments from both sides and reviewed the legal briefs and evidence presented during the trial. On January 22, 1973, the Supreme Court finally made the decision following careful consideration. In a landmark decision, the court ruled that Texas laws criminalizing most abortions violated the constitutional right to privacy, was broad enough to include a woman's decision to terminate her pregnancy. As a result, the Supreme Court declared laws unconstitutional, effectively legalizing abortion nationwide. A few years later, in 1976, Congress passed the Hyde Amendment, which prohibited the use of federal funds to pay for abortion services, except in cases of incest, rape, or when the woman's life was in danger. This means that programs like Medicaid, which provided self-care coverage to low-income people, could not use the federal funds to cover the cost of abortions except in very specific circumstances. The Hyde Amendment has been criticized for limiting low-income women's access to abortion care. This decision has triggered a wave of abortion bans and restrictions in many states, disproportionately affecting marginalized communities where systematic racism has long limited access to healthcare and opportunities. Over the years, anti-abortion politicians have appointed judges who oppose abortion rights. In June of 2022, the Supreme Court decision Dobbs versus Jackson overturned Roe, removing federal constitutional protection for abortion. This decision has triggered a wave of abortion bans and restrictions in many states, affecting once again marginalized communities where systematic racism has long limited access to healthcare and opportunities. However, in some states, they continue to permit abortions, and numerous organizations are effectively engaged in providing support and assistance. Is abortion accessible in my state? So here in Texas, it is eliminated. Reproductive justice. So who came up with the term reproductive justice? It was an amazing group called the Women of African Descent for Reproductive Justice in Chicago, and they did this on June 1994. Loretta Ross, a founding member of their organization, played an important role in coining the term reproductive justice. I thought it was amazing, but surprising that no one came up with the term sooner. Something many others than I am guilty of doing is using the terms reproductive justice and rights interchangeably. Although, to simply put, reproductive rights refers to the rights over one's body, while reproductive justice ensures that all people, particularly marginalized communities, have these rights. I found the reading Reproductive Justice, Not Just Rights by Dorothy Roberts quite an interesting read. Dorothy believed that reproductive rights movement focused on choices, often overlooking many other important issues, particularly women of color and those with lower incomes. Choice has privileged predominantly white, middle-class women who has the ability to choose from reproductive options that was unavailable to poor and low-income women, especially women of color. She instead believed that we could discuss reproductive justice, which included not only the rights to choose not to have children, but also the rights to have and raise them properly. Women without sufficient resources are simply held responsible for making bad choices, along with needs to ditch the dominant reproductive rights logic and replace it with a broader vision of reproductive justice. She believes that this approach should be led by women of color and address all of the ways in which people face discrimination. She wants the movement to be more than just the abortion rights and to address larger issues such as racial equality and economic justice. Another great read was called The New Strategies of Control by Loretta Ross and Ricky Solinger. The reading basically outlined historical injustice in reproductive rights, especially once again in women of color, but are we surprised? It highlights unequal access to reproductive health care and policies such as the Hyde Amendment. Women of color reject the narrow focus of choice and instead advocate more for reproductive justice, emphasizing open societal conditions like healthcare, housing, and racial equality. A quote from the reading that stood out to me, and it states, in the context of history such as laws and policies, what rules the individual's personal choice have in safeguarding the reproductive dignity and safety of women of color? This quote basically makes us think about how much power women of color had over their reproductive rights in the past, especially because the laws and policies were just as unfair and discriminatory. Lastly, another good read was A Reproductive Justice by Ross and Ricky Solinger. It stated merging reproductive rights with social justice to ensure everyone had the right to choose whether or not to have children and raise them, and the right to raise them. A quote that I thought was important to include is, at the heart of reproductive justice is this claim: all fertile persons and persons who reproduce and become parents require a safe and dignified context for these most fundamental human experiences. This quote states the principles of reproductive justice, more importantly, ensuring safety and dignity of all individuals in this reproductive experience. Before an abortion. Contraceptives that prevent unwanted pregnancies include condoms, birth controls, and implants. You shouldn't rely on just one method since they're not always effective. If you find yourself in this situation and become pregnant, you should be allowed to do whatever you want. If you find yourself considering an abortion in Texas, where it is currently illegal, know that support is still available. Despite the legal restrictions, there are still organizations committed to assisting you throughout this challenging time. However, due to the nature of the system, some people, particularly in those marginalized groups, may not receive assistance. This is where reproductive justice should be. We need to make everyone heard. We need accessibility. During an abortion, wherever you go, they will explain your options and assist you in making a decision. During the procedure, you will most likely be given medication or anesthesia for comfort. The procedure could include taking pills or going to the clinic. Everyone experiences an abortion differently. It can be extremely painful or simply uncomfortable. Your provider will explain how to prepare and what to do or expect afterwards. It is critical to seek support and take care of yourself emotionally. After an abortion, what to do after? Remember, everyone's body is different, and although some side effects include bleeding, and some people don't have any bleeding, and some people experience bleeding that lasts 2 to 6 weeks, pain or cramps, high blood pressure, fluctuating emotions, and have a follow-up exam if necessary. Most importantly, rest and recovery. Do not exercise or strain yourself by lifting heavy objects. Take care of yourselves, get massages, practice some relaxing breathing techniques to relieve stress. Organizations. Disclaimer, I am in no way telling anyone to get an abortion. This is just informational. The organizations to help you is Plant C Pills, Planned Parenthood, and Abortion Finder. A fact that I did not know until one of the lecture's presentations was that the closest clinic from San Antonio is 511.5 miles away, which is a women's reproductive clinic of New Mexico, which is shocking. What can we do to help? Donate to organizations that support abortions, donate to organizations that help provide abortion services to other people. Tell your senator how you feel, spreading your knowledge, voting for political candidates who prioritize reproductive rights and justice and healthcare access. Educate yourself and others about the importance of reproductive justice and how restrictive abortion laws affect marginalized communities. Speak up against abortion stigma and misinformation, and be positive and hear everyone's stories. We're excited.